A calm morning at the airport took an unexpected turn when a flight attendant stopped a black man to check his ticket. What seemed like a simple routine quickly spiraled into a shocking moment that left everyone watching stunned. But just 3 minutes later, the tables turned in a way no one could have imagined, and the entire boarding gate was left speechless. What really happened in those intense minutes? Before we dive into this incredible story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from today. And if you enjoy stories that highlight justice and unexpected twists, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay updated with more. It was a typical busy morning at the airport. Travelers filled the terminal, hurrying to their gates or waiting in long lines. The hum of rolling suitcases, chatter, and announcements blended into the usual rhythm of airport life. Among the crowd, some passengers moved confidently, while others looked nervous, holding onto their tickets like lifelines. In the middle of it all, James Carter sat in the first-class lounge, calm and collected. Dressed in a sharp navy suit, he carried an air of quiet confidence. James wasn't just another traveler, he was a self-made billionaire known for his humility and kindness. Today, though, he wasn't thinking about his accomplishments. He was just waiting to board his flight, unaware of the confrontation about to unfold. At gate 237, Susan Blake, a senior flight attendant, was preparing for the boarding process. Known for her efficiency and strictness, Susan scanned the crowd with her usual sharp gaze. When the announcement for first-class boarding came, James stood up, adjusted his suit, and headed toward the gate. His calm and steady steps turned a few heads, but he didn't seem to notice. When James reached Susan, he handed her his ticket with a polite smile. Susan glanced at it, her expression neutral at first. But then, she asked, "Can I see that ticket again, sir?" James, unfazed, handed it over once more. Around them, other passengers began to notice the interaction. Susan's tone grew sharper as she called over another staff member and whispered something. Then, she made the call for airport security. The mood at the gate shifted. People whispered among themselves, unsure of what was happening. Some began recording the scene on their phones. Despite the tension, James remained composed, standing tall and calm. Security officers arrived, but before they could act, a voice from the waiting area cut through the tension. It was an older woman who had been quietly watching. "Excuse me," she said firmly. "I saw him check in earlier. He's a first-class passenger." Her words caused a ripple effect. Other passengers began to speak up, supporting James and questioning Susan's actions. The officers hesitated, unsure how to proceed. Finally, James spoke. His voice was steady and calm. "I believe everyone deserves to be treated with respect. This could have been handled differently." His words struck a chord. The crowd fell silent, and even Susan seemed taken aback. Slowly, she handed James his ticket and stepped back. As James boarded the plane, those who witnessed the scene were left in awe. A moment that could have escalated into something far worse had become a powerful reminder of dignity, grace, and standing up against bias. This wasn't just about a flight, it was about justice, humanity, and the strength of staying calm under pressure. The passengers at gate 237 would remember this day for a long time. As James steps into the line for first-class boarding, the atmosphere shifts. He carries himself with quiet confidence, his sharp navy suit setting him apart from the crowd. But just as he nears the boarding gate, Susan, the flight attendant on duty, steps in front of him with a firm, almost cold voice. "Sir, I'll need to see your ticket," she says, her tone leaving no room for argument. James pauses and meets her gaze. Her eyes scan him from head to toe, her expression sharp and uninviting. It's clear she's already made an assumption, though James can't imagine why. Still, he remains calm, reaching into his pocket to pull out the neatly folded boarding pass. "Here you go," he says politely, handing it over with a small nod. Susan takes the ticket but doesn't glance at it right away. Instead, she holds it as if weighing its validity. When she finally does look, her eyes narrow slightly. She flips it over, mutters something under her breath, and then looks back at James with a skeptical expression. "This doesn't seem right," she murmurs, almost as if to herself, but loud enough for James to hear. She scans the ticket again, her fingers gripping the edges tightly. The line behind James grows restless. and whispers begin to ripple through the crowd. James, unfazed, stands tall and waits. His patience seems to irritate Susan, who calls over another airline staff member to inspect the ticket alongside her. Together they huddle, whispering and casting occasional glances at James. Around them, other passengers begin to notice the unusual delay. Phones discreetly emerge from pockets, capturing the scene. James's calm demeanor contrasts sharply with Susan's growing discomfort, setting the stage for a confrontation no one at the gate will soon forget. The air around the boarding gate grows heavier as passengers in the queue exchange quiet glances, their whispers filling the silence. Eyes dart between James and Susan, sensing the tension simmering just beneath the surface. James, standing tall and composed, finally breaks the silence with a steady voice. "Is there a problem with my ticket?" he asks, his tone polite but firm, making it clear he won't be easily intimidated. Susan straightens her posture, her grip tightening on the boarding pass. "I need to verify its authenticity," she replies briskly. "It's just protocol." The words hang in the air, but their impact is undeniable. Around them, other passengers glance at their own tickets, puzzled by the apparent need for such thorough scrutiny of James's. James's calm exterior begins to shift, his expression tightening ever so slightly. He notices something he cannot ignore, and none of the other first-class passengers are being questioned. No one else is being pulled aside or subjected to this protocol. He remains composed, but there's a flicker of controlled frustration in his eyes. "I see," he says evenly, his voice measured. "I just want to be sure everyone in this line is receiving the same level of attention." Susan bristles at his words, her response sharp. "I'm just doing my job, sir." Behind James, the whispers grow louder. Some passengers look on with discomfort, while others begin recording discreetly, sensing that this moment might be more significant than it seems. James's calm demeanor remains intact, but the unspoken question lingers in the air. Why him? The tension continues to build, each passing second adding to the unease among the passengers. The stage is set for the situation to escalate further, and the room seems to hold its breath, waiting for what will happen next. The tension at the gate continues to grow, thick enough to cut with a knife. James stands unwavering, his calm presence a stark contrast to the mounting unease around him. With a subtle lift of his chin, he speaks again, his voice steady and deliberate. "I see," he says, his words cutting through the silence like a blade. "Is this protocol for everyone, or just for me?" His question isn't loud, but it carries weight. It's not confrontational, but it demands an answer. Around him, passengers lean in, straining to catch every word. Susan's demeanor hardens. Her lips press into a thin line as she doubles down, her tone clipped. "I'm just doing my job," she says again, her words delivered with sharp finality. Yet, the repeated line rings hollow now, a weak shield against the unspoken tension in the air. The passengers in the queue begin reacting in their own ways. The older couple seated nearby exchange worried glances, their expressions a mixture of concern and discomfort. The husband shifts in his seat, murmuring something to his wife, who nods gravely. A few feet away, a curious child tugs insistently at their parent's sleeve, their voice ringing out with innocent clarity. "Why is she being mean to him?" the child asks, their tone loud and unfiltered, piercing through the murmur of whispers. The parent hushes the child quickly, casting a nervous glance at Susan, but the question lingers in the air, raw and honest. The child's words seem to echo the unspoken thoughts of many in the crowd, their simplicity cutting straight to the heart of the moment. James doesn't flinch, his composure unbroken. His eyes remain steady, meeting Susan's with quiet strength, even as the whispers and murmurs around them grow louder. The dynamics of the room are shifting, the weight of the situation pressing down on everyone watching. Susan, however, remains firm, clutching the boarding pass as though it might somehow validate her persistence. But cracks are beginning to show, not just in her confidence, but in the trust of those around her. The boarding gate feels less like a place of departure, and more like a stage where a deeper story is unfolding, a story of dignity, bias, and a moment that will soon demand resolution. The air is thick with tension, and the passengers around them are starting to feel it. Just when it seems like things are about to get worse, another flight attendant walks up, sensing something isn't right. She steps forward, looking from Susan to James, her voice calm but serious. "Susan, is everything okay here?" she asks, trying to bring some peace to the situation. Susan doesn't even look at her colleague. "I'm just making sure this passenger's ticket is valid," she says, her tone firm and cold. James, clearly getting frustrated, speaks up before Susan can continue. His voice stays calm, but there's a hint of challenge in his words. "You mean to make sure I'm qualified to sit in first class?" His words hang in the air, making it clear he's pointing out something bigger than just the ticket. There's an uncomfortable pause as everyone around them begins to realize what's really happening. The quiet accusation in James's voice is hard to ignore now. The situation reaches its peak, with Susan standing firm, her eyes narrowing as if preparing to refuse James boarding. The tension in the air grows heavier by the second, but just when it seems like things might go too far, James remains calm. Without a word, he pulls out his phone and makes a quiet call. The passengers around him watch in confusion, unsure of what's happening. Within moments, something incredible happens. The door opens, and in walks the CEO of the airline, flanked by airport security. The room falls silent, the unexpected arrival turning heads as the CEO strides toward James. With a warm handshake, the CEO addresses James with clear respect. "Mr. Carter, I'm so sorry for this misunderstanding," he says, his voice full of sincerity. "Rest assured we'll address this immediately." The entire boarding area stands still, shocked by the sudden change in power. What was just moments ago a tense standoff is now being diffused in the most unexpected way. The truth of James's identity and the weight of the situation dawn on everyone, and the silence is deafening. As the CEO walks into the scene, Susan's face loses all color. She stares at him, her eyes wide, clearly shocked by what is happening. The CEO doesn't waste time. His voice is clear and strong as he speaks to Susan. "Susan, I'm placing you on administrative leave right now. We will review everything that has happened today." The CEO doesn't look at James. He stays focused on Susan, telling her to step aside. Susan, feeling the weight of the moment, moves away slowly, her hands trembling. The passengers all watch in silence, some still unsure about what they had just seen. The tension in the air is thick, but there's also a sense of relief. James takes a deep breath and turns to face the group of passengers watching him. His voice is calm, but there's strength in every word. "We all deserve dignity," he says, looking at each of them with steady eyes. "No matter who we are, no matter where we come from, and no matter what we look like, we all deserve respect. Let's remember that today and every day." For a moment, there is nothing but quiet. Then, slowly, the passengers begin to clap. At first, it's just a few people, but soon, the whole group joins in. The sound of applause fills the terminal, and the atmosphere completely changes. In the middle of the applause, a child, no more than 6 years old, stands up, her small face beaming with innocence. She tugs at her parent's sleeve, pointing toward James, and says loudly for everyone to hear, "He's like a real-life superhero." James can't help but smile at the child's words. It's a simple, sweet moment, but it feels like the perfect reminder of why standing up for what's right matters. His heart warms as he watches the passengers applaud, all of them now united by a shared understanding of what just happened. The flight attendants who had been watching the scene unfold remained quiet, some of them nodding in approval. James's eyes flick to the CEO, who gives him a small, respectful nod before walking off with security. As the airplane finally starts to board, James moves calmly to his seat in first class. He takes his time, not rushing, as the other passengers get settled. The plane starts to move slowly, taxiing toward the runway. James leans back in his seat, feeling the soft hum of the plane beneath him. He pulls out his phone and opens an email from his legal team. It's an update on the airline's future, confirming that he has now officially purchased a majority stake in the company. His smile widens slightly as he reads the message. The plan had been in motion for a while, but now it was complete. James knew that his actions would have a lasting impact, not just on the people who had witnessed today's events, but on the airline itself. James leans back even more comfortably in his seat, his thoughts clear. This wasn't just a small moment of justice, It was a major step toward making real change. He had taken the high road in the face of bias. And now, the world would know that actions like this would no longer be tolerated. The ball was in his court, and it was clear that this was just the beginning of something bigger. As the plane lifts off into the sky, James gazes out the window, a quiet sense of satisfaction filling him. He knew that what he had done today wasn't about revenge. It was about standing up for what's right. And that in itself was the real victory. As the plane continues its ascent, James reflects quietly to himself, his gaze still out the window. A soft smile crosses his face as he thinks back to his mother's words that had guided him through the toughest moments of his life. Mum always said, "Turn moments of injustice into opportunities to make the world better." James murmurs under his breath. He leans back in his seat, his hands resting on the armrests. Today was one of those moments. It's clear now, more than ever, that James's actions weren't just about the immediate situation. They were a reminder that every single one of us has the power to make a difference, even in the smallest moments. Sometimes, standing up for what's right isn't easy, but it's always worth it. James had made a choice to act, and in doing so, he had helped create a ripple effect that would extend far beyond the airport terminal. Now, we want to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed or experienced a moment of injustice? How did you respond? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your stories. And if you enjoy stories like this, ones that shine a light on justice and empowering twists, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Stay tuned for more incredible narratives that inspire change and remind us all of the power we hold to make the world a better place.